Thanks for joining us and welcome to our first ever episode of Higgs in Conversation With. This podcast is designed to dive into the minds of some of the most successful individuals who are in senior positions within leading businesses in the UK and aims to provide a peek into their life both personally and professionally. My name is James Modley and I will be your host. I am a partner in the Commercial Dispute Resolution team at Higgs LLP. Today's guest, and our first guest, is going to be fascinating. I am delighted to welcome Vicky Gaunt, Head of Legal Services at Marston's PLC, the UK's leading independent brewing and pub retailing business. Vicky, welcome.
Hi, thank you, James. So happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So, Vicky, tell us about who you are, so your job role, what you do on a daily basis, and the team that you work with.
Sure, happy to. As you've said, I'm head of legal at Marston's, and the role is varied. That's what I will say to kind of headline that. It can be anything from contract negotiation and approval to intellectual property, disputes. We do a lot of support for our estates team, and also our pub partners. So we have a real mixed estate. So we have pub partners that work with us and we give them a lot of support in terms of legal compliance.
Okay, so literally no 2 days are ever the same for you.
No, you know that as well as I do as a lawyer. No 2 days in the law are ever the same.
I do. So you've touched on it briefly, but just tell us about Marston's and what do Marston's do?
Yeah, so Marston's are one of the UK's leading pub companies. We have a mixed estate of around 1,300 pubs. We sold our stake in CNBC in 2024, so we're now a pure play pub company, just focused on running great pubs for our local communities. And I touched on us having a mix. I think it's one of our great strengths is we have a real mixed estate. So we have managed pubs and we have our partner pubs, which essentially you'd think about those like a franchise, and then our pure traditional tenant and leased properties. And we're up and down the country. We have some sites in Scotland, about 15, 16 sites in Scotland, England and Wales. And yeah, we don't have city centre pubs. We have, your suburban heart of the community pubs, and that's who we are.
I must say, my local pub is a Marston's pub, and I think it's one of the best pubs. But I know I'm a bit biased.
Pleased to hear it.
So, what's your typical day? What time do you start? What time do you finish? I know that you've talked about the varied workload that you do, but just on a typical day, just give us a snapshot of what that is.
Yeah. Well, I'm an early riser. Some people work better in the morning, some people work better in the evening. I am definitely not a night owl. I'm an early riser. So I'll typically start work around 7. If I'm feeling particularly motivated, maybe a little bit before, but particularly around 7. I'll quickly check through my emails, check the diary of what's going on for the day. And then it's really a quick check back to see what's on my to-do list for the week, what are the priorities for today, and then trying to kind of block the time during the day or during the week to get various tasks done, depending on their, urgency, risk profile, time that it's going to take to do the task. I do try to time block so that I know what's happening during the week and I can set aside time for, real deep thinking and those long documents that you need to read, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way.
Okay, and tell me, Vicky, so there's yourself, but who else is in your team?
Yeah, so we've got a great team. We're small but perfectly formed, so there's 5 of us. There's myself that heads up the team. We then have our legal services team coordinator, who predominantly looks after everything that we do with our pub partners. So there's a lot of work that goes on with our pub partners. We've got about 800 retail sites where we have pub partners coming in and out all the time, and there's a lot of legal compliance that goes around that. So essentially the other people in my team are focused solely on that. It's a lot of process work, and it's got to be done right first time. It's got to be done efficiently, quickly, to meet the needs of the business. You know, we're a fast-paced business, and we need a team that can, you know, respond to that as and when they need to. So yes, we are a small but perfectly formed team.
Okay, I know that you're, let's say, very humble, and that's downplaying it. But obviously, to get to where you've got to, you've had to work hard. I would imagine there's been a lot of hours that you've had to put in to get there, and I would imagine that you have made sacrifices along the way. Maybe we'll come on to that a little bit later on. But just for the people that are listening, what do you class as optimal performance for someone within your role within a legal team, leading a legal team?
I think optimal versus not always getting there, but I would say there's probably 3 things that I would think of when you're thinking about optimal performance, particularly in-house, and that would be efficiency, stakeholder satisfaction, and strategic alignment. As an in-house lawyer, it's a completely different world to working in private practice. You know, it really is focused much more on the commercial aspect of the business. It's great, you know, I absolutely love it. Having that alignment to strategy and alignment to the business is brilliant. But I would say, yeah, for optimal performance, those 3 things: that efficiency, stakeholder satisfaction, and strategic alignment.
So I'm just interested, actually, just on all of those points. I was thinking about 2, but actually all of them. So efficiency. What do you mean by efficiency?
I think so. In a private practice, you know, the work that you do is costed, and you charge somebody for that work, and they pay your bill. In-house, that doesn't happen. So you can't be seen as a drain on resources or a cost centre that isn't actually enabling the business to move forward. We need to be somebody or a team that is really valuable to the business, and that we are, you know, their, you know, right-hand man for any questions, queries, whether that be big or small. So one part of efficiency being that cost center. The other side of efficiency is that I found it can be very easy to get drawn into some maybe more administrative tasks or tasks that really don't sit within legal, because if you're a good legal team, you become quite a popular team. People will use your kind of resource to get things moving forward, which is absolutely brilliant. I love it. But if you're not careful, you can find yourself becoming quite inefficient by taking on things which either don't really sit in your world or could be done in a more automated way. So there's 2 aspects in there to efficiency.
Again, so just touching on a point that you've said, I think people have a perception, and I think it's built into particularly lawyers, that everything we do needs to be perfect, that everything we do needs to be 100% in the weeds, and definitive decisions need to be made to perfection, almost like a Rolls-Royce service. But actually, you and I both know that on occasions we can't do that for various reasons, whether it's the risk profile of the business or the client saying that they want to take a riskier approach, therefore they want a high-level view, or sometimes there's cost constraints. And I think for individuals particularly not as experienced, that's quite hard to grapple with, because you never want to let yourself down and or the business and or the client down, or yourself down. But equally, there may be a cost prohibitor or a time prohibitor where you just cannot do 100% job. So I'm glad you said that, because I think that people listening will be quite interested in that aspect. And then just briefly touching on the 2, and I think they dovetail quite nicely, the stakeholder and the alignment. Within a business your size, that has got to be a considerable challenge.
It is a challenge. Yeah, it is a challenge. It's a challenge to find the right person, it's the challenge to hold on to the right person when you've got them. So yeah, we employ 1,200 people. And about 400 of those people sit within, we don't call it our headquarters, we call it our pub support centre, because we truly believe that's what we are. We're a support centre to our pubs. So yeah, definitely difficult sometimes to always be able to find the right person and be doing the right thing all of the time. You touched on it before. We've looked a lot in our team about what is the thing that is going to get us most satisfaction? What's the thing that gets us most kind of traction with our stakeholders? We've got loads, and we can't do everything for everybody all of the time. So you've got to pick those key stakeholders, make sure that what you're doing is aligning to strategy, and then you will find the right person and do the job for that person. Some of the things may have to wait, and that, we've done a lot of work in the team about time management and prioritizing, and so that we get that outcome of, great satisfaction from our stakeholders.
And actually, I think it's probably an apt time to just dispel a myth that I speak to a lot of people within businesses, whether that is a small business or a large business like yourself. And most of them say, and I'll say most, not all, most of them say or view in-house legal as a no department. So I think it's fair to say that a lot of the business sectors view you as, oh, have we got to go to legal? Because they're just going to say no. That couldn't be further from the truth, could it?
Not at all. And particularly at Marston's, I've worked hard over the past couple of years to really try and turn that mindset. We are not people that are here to say no. We're here to be enablers. We want to enable the business to do what it wants to do in the best possible way, to serve our guests the best way that we possibly can, but being mindful of hidden risks that come with anything that we do. That could be a marketing campaign, that could be the type of pub format that we want to roll out, to you have situations such as whistleblowing, etc., and speak up lines. So there's a whole wide variety of things that we do want to do, and or our regulators ask us to do. And what we want to do as a team is be that enabler to say, do you know what? Yes, you can do that. Might have to tweak it a little bit, but yes, you can do that. We'll always find a way through. It's very, very, very rare that you will ever hear just a blank no come out of my mouth.
Yeah. And us lawyers aren't that boring either, are we? I think that's another myth. I think we're just normal people. So
normal people
what
wait 5 o'clock on a Friday
to go to a Marston's pub. So success. You've just referenced there. You want to deliver excellent service to your customers, be the best business that you can be. What are your 3 non-negotiables for success? And then I think just to add on to that, how do you measure success? What is success in your eyes, in the business's eyes?
I think there's the first question, or the first part of the question I reflected on. And I think for me, and it'll be personal to everybody, but for me, self-motivation, tenacity, and being people-focused. For me, that's what has driven success for me, will continue to drive success for me, will be what I will embed in the team so that the team can be successful. Second part of your question, I suppose, measurement of success, taking it away from the business for a moment, a measure of success. It's a feeling for me. We can have all of the KPIs, and don't get me wrong, I like being performance driven, and I like a KPI to work to. But for me, real success is how I feel, and it doesn't happen all the time, but there's sometimes when I'm, driving to work or from work, and I think, do you know what? Yeah, we're doing really well here. The team's flying. From a professional point of view, I'm feeling like I'm in a good place. And you can't measure that on a spreadsheet. You can't put it on a tracker. It's just how you feel. And the converse is true. When things are slipping. And so you measure that success from where you were to where you are.
Yeah, I think that's just life, right? So take it out of the business perspective. You know when things are going well, you know when things are going bad, you know everything in between.
Yeah,
But you saying that again, you touch upon people. Um, People are the lifeblood of any organisation, and
yeah,
it's really important. And this is a challenge for any business, ours included. It's really important to get the right people in the right role.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. We have got a great mix of people in our team, my team, and then our wider legal risk and company secretariat team. We've got a great mix of experience, knowledge, past employment history, a multitude of different, large and small companies that people have worked in. So they'll have all different experience. Within my team, we've got people that are motivated to progress in their career, which is absolutely fantastic. The converse is also true. I have a wonderful lady in my team who is absolutely fantastic at her job, nails it every single day. Any objective, any KPI you put in front of her, nails it. She doesn't want to progress in her career. She wants to do what she's doing now really, really well. And I love that. So
Yeah.
we have such a mixed bag, and you're so right. To get the right people in the right roles is key. You can't be successful, I don't think, without being people focused.
And what people won't know is that you are heavily involved in trying to shape that culture at Marston's. Do you want to speak a little bit about that and just explain what you're doing internally?
Um, yeah, sure. So alongside my role as head of legal, um, I also chair our what we call our balance network. So that focuses on our employees' well-being. So we really focus on what additional support can we give to people alongside what their line manager will give them, and the support that they will have within their team. Various resources that they can go to for support should they require any of that kind of well-being support. We think that's really, really important. And if you support people in that way, I really do believe that people will continue to give back to your business, and you will drive those behaviours of commitment and motivation and loyalty and accountability, because people feel that they belong somewhere, and that's important to people. And they will give you back tenfold.
Couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. Um, coming back to the question, you came up with three non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just interested, where have they been driven from?
I think probably, a profession in the law isn't easy, right? So there's challenges at every turn. And even though we sit in teams, and sometimes as a team you might act for a client, most of the time it's you, and nobody's coming, right? Nobody's coming to save you. You have to have that self-motivation. I think that's definitely where that comes from, that thought of, nobody's coming to progress my career. Nobody's coming to, create a performance-driven team. It's me, and it's the people around me. And that gives me motivation in itself. I have the choice to get up and go for it, and drive for success, or you don't. And I think that's a fine choice. For people that don't, I think that's absolutely fine. But that's where it comes from for me. I think the tenacity point is that thought that even whether you're in a litigation role or not, you're always striving for your client's best interests. So you might not be standing up in court and arguing a case, but your clients trust you to get the right outcome for them in whatever area of the law. So you do have to have that tenacity. You do have to go after what you want. And finally, we've said it, that people focus is just one of my values. It's just one of my core values. You know, um, it's about service for me, and getting that fulfillment out of service. It gives me that sense of purpose. So yeah, I reflected on the question when you asked me, and I think that's definitely where it comes from.
Again, considering we've just been speaking probably for about 15 minutes, there's a constant theme flowing through this, and that is people. And I think, for sure, myself, speaking on my behalf, I'm only as good as the people around me.
Yeah.
And without those people around me, I wouldn't be certainly where I am today, and I wouldn't be able to provide the service to clients without a team, because we're all in it together. And I think that's exactly what you are saying in the messages that you've delivered so far.
Oh, it's 100%. You know, whether those are people who are in your team and you are, you are their direct report, or whether it's people that, you work alongside or you work for, all of those people will have an influence on you, and all of those people will be supporting you in some way. So for me, 100%, it's people focus all the way.
And what's been the most valuable lesson that you've learned so far in your career, would you say?
I think, and it took me a while to learn this, listen more than you speak. I am naturally a chatter, just am. Don't need a glass of wine either, just naturally a chatter. But I think it's really, really important, and it's really hit me more since I joined Marston's. If you really want to learn and you really want to be effective and that real effective business support partner, you've got to listen first. You've got to listen first, actively listen, practice that active listening, and speak later. There's always time to speak. You can't listen to what that person's saying twice, because they're only saying it they're only saying it, at that moment.
What you have said is so true, and yet, if you step back, everyone probably thinks that's just a given, but actually it's not, is it? It's not. And that is a lesson, like you, that took me time to learn and took me time to properly think about, because we all assume what a client or what a person may want from an impression. But actually, you never know what someone wants until you listen to what they're saying to you. That's a really, really powerful piece.
Yeah, particularly, I think I fell foul of it, because when you work in an area of the law for such a long time, you specialise in one area, you almost believe that you know what a client's going to ask for before they ask for it, because you've seen hundreds of clients before. But for them, it's the first time talking to you, right? It's their first experience of whatever it is that they're asking you to represent them on. And I think that's where I probably fell foul. And so when I came into Marston's and moved from private practice to in-house, it hit me then, hold on, I need to stop here. I need to really listen to what somebody's saying, so that I can understand the business before I go on my merry way doing what I think that the business needs, when actually I wasn't aligned at all. Because there's always the agenda, and then the real agenda. What is somebody really trying to achieve? And if you don't practice that active listening, you'll never dig down deep into what they actually want. But I'm not saying it's easy. I find it a challenge now.
It's a top tip. Thank you. And that leads us nicely on to, we're all fearful of making mistakes, whether that's personally or professionally, because mistakes are always associated with being bad, that they shouldn't happen, given that we are we're solicitors. Solicitors don't make mistakes, allegedly. So just on that, do you think mistakes are positive, negative, and why?
I think in the moment, mistakes are awful, right? So when you realise something has happened, or you can see it happening and you can't stop it, in that moment, awful. But when you reflect, and I think the key is to reflect, and you can't do it in the moment. It's impossible. You have to just get in the mud and sort it out. But if you can reflect on that and try and put a positive, or try and see some aspects in a positive light, should I say, you'll always be able to learn something, whether that be personal. So you might take a different attitude with a different person, or a different style of language with a different person next time, or you would just change a process so that just does not happen again. It literally can't happen again if it's an IT system, for example.
Yeah.
Years ago, when I first started in my property career, very, very short story, I applied, or thought I had applied, to draw down a client's mortgage money. And this was in the old days where you had to send it by fax.
Yeah.
Send the request off by fax. I didn't wait for the confirmation to come through from on the fax machine, and the mortgage money didn't arrive. And this has got to be, it's got 18 years ago, 17, 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And every single time, and I'm probably saying I requested another 600, 700 lots of mortgage money since that point. I did the exact same tick on the piece of paper 600 times, and it never happened again. And it's just ingrained in my brain now, because at the time it was awful, but I knew that I couldn't let it happen again. So you create little pathways for yourselves, or processes. So there's always a positive that can come out of it.
Yeah, I had a great boss that said, look, mistakes are going to happen. It's life. Mistakes will happen. The key is that you do not repeat that mistake again.
Yeah.
And some of the mistakes I've made historically, I will never do again. And they have been a great learning curve. And actually, I think it's what makes you as a person, because if life was straightforward and you always had success and nothing ever went wrong, that probably wouldn't make you, one, who you are today, and two, it wouldn't keep you on your toes and alive to the fact you can't get complacent.
Absolutely.
Everything changes. You need to stay on top of things, and you need to be at your best performance possible. And that will go up and down each day. But you need to try your best. And as long as you try and you learn from your mistakes, I think that's the key.
Absolutely. And if you don't have those moments where it's down, how do you know you've got success? If it's just the same, if it's
You
just
don't.
great, how do you know? You have to, as I was talking about, earlier on, that feeling inside yourself. How are you going to know that it's great if you haven't had those moments where you think the world's going to implode? It never is. It never is. It's never as bad once you can just step out of the moment. But in the moment, as I say, yeah, awful. But you're right. You've got to have those. You've got to have those moments of learning, and you've got to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes again. Or if you do, that you've not been complacent when that happens. I understand that people will make, as you say, people will make mistakes, and sometimes they make the same mistake. But if they've really consciously tried hard to put in, processes or mindsets to not, then there's a level of forgiveness, isn't there? And we're all human.
There is, and I think a key lesson, or maybe not a lesson, a key piece of information or a snippet of a tip would be, if you make a mistake, say that you've made a mistake and solve it. Don't try and hide it, because if you try and hide it, it just escalates into something that it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. An acorn can grow very quickly in a mistake. We used to call them, don't have paper files now, obviously, but we used to call them fish files. Those ones that sit on your desk and just get smellier and smellier and smellier. Just nip them in the bud straight away.
Yeah, agreed. So you mentioned you lead a team before.
Mm-hmm.
Leading teams, some people find it easy, some people find it quite challenging. But what's the key secret ingredient for you to lead a team, to grow a team, to make sure it's as successful as it could possibly be?
I don't think there's a secret ingredient. If there is, I haven't got it. Somebody needs to give me some. But I think, we've talked a lot about that people-focused approach, and I do think that that's really, really important. I think you've got to look at the team that you're responsible for. You can't deploy the same leadership style to every single team or every single person within that team that you manage. What I found is, really setting a clear plan, setting clear goals, making sure that everybody in the team knows the direction of travel, and most importantly, why. There's no point in saying we're going to do X, Y, Z. These are our KPIs. Off we go. There's got to be that why. What if we do what we're setting out to do? What difference will we make? How will we be that great business partner to the business if we do what we set out to do? People have got to feel like they're part of it. They've got to feel that accountability. They've got to feel that motivation, that kind of dedication to the cause. We meet regularly. We have really, really clear objectives. We have clear measures against those objectives. And we talk about it. I have maintained with my team that any objective, any number that we put around anything, it's not a stick to beat anybody around the head with. It's something that we're going for, and I do make them punchy. I don't shy away from that. I think, we come to work to be challenged. We don't come to work to be stressed, but we do come to work to be challenged. So we make those objectives punchy. But what we do if we're not getting there is we talk about why. Not why as in who's done what, but is it the process that's wrong? If we're consistently not able to get through to where we want to be, and we know here's utopia and we're still kind of down here just getting bogged down with a system that's not fit for purpose, well, that data is going to tell us we need to do something about that process. Is it something that we can improve? Is it something that we can automate? Are we, putting too many barriers in front of ourselves? Are we not seeing the wood for the trees? It enables that conversation. So as I say, it's not something to beat people around the head with. It's really a tool that we use to discuss how we're going to improve as a team. And that gets people talking and engagement. And that's how I've found leading a successful team works really well.
I've written down one key word in front of me, and I think from everything that you've said, communication. And I think communication is, on paper, the easiest thing, but I certainly find communication to be one of the hardest challenges across any business.
Yeah, it's really hard, particularly when you've got, I've got a small team, but a 1,200 people business. Communication for our business is a challenge, particularly when you have people who are working in pub all different times from 8 o'clock until midnight. Then you've got a pub support centre which is open during your normal working hours. That communication is tough. I can't change the world, right? So all I can do is try and work within my team to make sure that we've got as many channels open. That's so we have 2 meetings a month. We separate those meetings over like day-to-day tasks. What's looking forward for the month, and then we do a flip one, which is just all about objectives and challenges and anything that we're really struggling with, and wins as well. We talk about our successes and our wins. So we keep that cycle so that those meetings don't become, if you have weekly meetings, they become a little bit, same. Everybody just says the same thing every time. So we mix that up. We have a Teams channel. We have one-to-ones. I know my girls have their own WhatsApp chats. So we, with people not being in the office all the time, it's really difficult. So we have as many lines of communication as we can. We know what the formal ones are, when stuff really needs to be done, we know where that goes, but we're always chatting, and having those kind of everyday conversations is super important. Those successes, those short little coaching conversations, those just normal conversations. It's so important not to sit in silos.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We've all worked throughout our time, I certainly have, with some interesting people, and you take the good, the bad, the indifferent, and then what I've tried to do is put all of that together to try and make me the best person that I can be. But what do you think makes a great leader from the experience that you've had so far?
For people that I suppose people that have inspired me or shaped me have got similar styles. So it's people that make time for their people, people that have a clear plan, people that have that real positivity, that positive growth mindset, a great energy about them. You can almost picture the type of person, when I'm talking about it. Somebody who can adapt to change, who can take you with them on change journeys. I think it's that growth mindset that I've really learned. If I think about leaders who have inspired me and who continue to inspire me, it is that growth mindset, and that positive energy, because with that you can overcome those things like mistakes and change and the challenges that come with those.
Yeah. And quick question then. Leaders, born or self-taught?
For me, I don't think I'm born. It's not natural for me. It is more natural than it was, but it's certainly not natural for me. So I wouldn't say that I was born with it. I think certain people are. I think certain people just have that natural kind of positivity, charisma that makes them a great leader. But I don't necessarily feel like that was me. I think I've hopefully become that.
And that brings me nicely onto imposter syndrome. So the amount of people that I speak to that I'll use the word suffer, but I don't mean suffer, have fallen foul to or thought, how am I here? I think it's perfectly natural, but a lot of people don't talk about it for fear. And I think that's changing, but automatically people will look at you, Vicky, as head of legal at Marston's, or me as a partner, that actually we wouldn't or don't suffer with imposter syndrome of how are we here? I for sure do on occasions. I'll openly admit that. Do you? Question?
I think you're an imposter if you don't, quite honestly.
Love that.
Think everybody at some point, and it might not be something that people experience all the time, but yeah, of course I do. Probably several times a week, if I'm honest. It just comes in a moment that you think, like you, God, how did I get here? Like, I am in such a privileged position to speak to some super senior decision makers within our business, who are all, fantastic leaders and, really inspirational people and are driving forward such a fantastic business. And, last week I was invited to speak in front of them, and it was, an amazing invite. And of course you don't say no. I mean, they did give me 24 hours notice. So, it was all a bit crazy. But at the time you think, why do they care what I think? Why are they going to listen to me? And that was a moment for me last week of imposter syndrome, thinking, oh, why do they care what I think? And it was so fascinating because as I was preparing for the meeting in the depths of the night, I did start to think, actually, yes, do you know what I mean? I do know, and what I've got to say is worth something, and it is valuable, and I am a good business partner, and this will be, interesting for them and purposeful. And it turned out to be a fantastic, successful meeting, etc., etc. But yeah, you sometimes when you feel very, I feel very lucky to have the position that I have. I feel very privileged. I acknowledge that I have worked hard, but it's an enormous amount of privilege, as I say, to be in a position as I am. And yet that is going to come with imposter syndrome.
I love that answer, Vicky, and I think everything is so true that you've just said. So thank you for sharing that with us. Just personally, what has been your greatest achievement in your role?
Oh, greatest achievement's really difficult, isn't it? Because, I was never, or have never been, a litigator where you win big cases, or a family lawyer where you get that family matter resolved. I've worked in transactional legal work all my life, and now in-house. I think, and I did reflect on this question, because there's not a single case that I can draw out. There's the obvious. It's fantastic that I've had great feedback from clients over many years, but I actually think that my greatest achievement might have been to leave a role that I was really unhappy in, and the strength that took to do that, and the fear that came with that, and all of those worries when you leave a role and you move into might be a different job, different area of the law, etc. For me, I think going through that transition and coming out the other side and now being where I am, I think that feels like a really great achievement for me personally.
Been there, Vicky. I'll second that. I think as lawyers, I'm certainly risk averse. So to change something that you have known for so long, to then try and not start again, but start with different faces, a different environment, it's challenging, and it does take real commitment.
Absolutely. And you can start to, as you start to pull away from that challenging or tough situation, you do, that success means even more, I think, because where you were, and now you can see that success that's come through because you made that scary leap into the dark.
We spoke at the beginning of when we started to go through the questions, and you explained the size of the business and the size of your team and how that's structured.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bridge the gap from making decisions and then getting others in the company to follow and implement them? And I think I'm looking forward to this answer, because if I was to ask someone in the commercial side of the business, it will probably be different. But from a legal team, you've got to bring pretty much the whole business on a journey with you. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It is a big challenge, and there's several kind of factors to it. Firstly, and we touched on it before, you've got that traditional historic view that legal are going to just say no anyway. So you start from a position of being on the back foot, unfortunately. As I say, we've tried to change that around to be seen as an enabler. But the business is huge, right? So we've got pub support centre, and then we have our pubs. But sitting in between there, you've got our operational teams, so our area managers, our regional operational managers, and they're the conduit between us and pubs. So it's really being able to be aligned to where they're at, where are they at in strategy, what actually helps them on the ground. And I've said it before. You and I have probably had a conversation about it previously. You can build a wonderful process. It's lovely, all the bells and whistles, fantastic, automated, stunning. If it doesn't help the people that you set out to help, they won't use it, and the whole project falls flat on its face. So you've got to be aligned from the start. You've got to understand what the real agenda is. You've got to understand what their expectations are and keep them updated. It's that communication point again. It's making sure that you're keeping those key stakeholders updated, taking on board what they say, and trying to implement that. Now, sometimes it's not always possible to do what they want to do, and so those are the rare occasions where you do have to say, actually, we absolutely can't do it in that way. Ultimately, there is a desire to be compliant. I don't think anybody purposefully goes out of their way to be non-compliant with regulations or legislation, etc., etc. It's just trying to get people to see that it's not onerous. We're trying to build processes to support and help them. And it takes time. I think that's one of the things I have learned, actually. I worked in, a medium-sized private practice in my private practice career, maybe 400 or 500 people, and stuff gets done, right? You get it done. When you employ 12,000 people over, 1,300 sites, things take much longer than I ever imagined that they would. But I think when you understand that, or once I've understood that, you make better progress, actually.
And looking forward, what's the business's major goals?
Our vision. So our vision are set out by our CEO, who joined us last year, is to be the UK's leading pub company. So that is our overall vision.
Yep.
That is supported by various kind of drivers, one of which being operating the business safely and sustainably. And I suppose when I look at my role and the role of kind of risk, compliance, legal, that we sit firmly in that camp to support the business operating safely and sustainably. We've got loads of exciting things going on. It's a really exciting time for the business. Hospitality is challenging, everybody knows that, but people still want to go out. They want to go out and they want to have a good time. And we want to be the venue of choice for people. We've got loads of great event-led marketing campaigns. We're really focusing on family dining and adult dining, and having that separation within our estate so that we can accommodate all manner of different people across our diverse communities. So there's loads of exciting stuff going on. But yeah, top line vision, UK's leading pub company.
I'm sure that will undoubtedly happen, knowing the business that I do. So I'm just going to turn it slightly a little bit, and we're getting towards the end now. So obviously I'm in private practice, and I'm just interested, what qualities do you look for, expect your external advisors to have, and why?
It's a really interesting question, actually. I think because I think naturally you would say knowledge, experience, but I think for me that's got to be a given. The knowledge and the experience, whether that be in legal, taxation, accounting, etc. You're going to almost know that that's there. For me, it's that matched energy and that matched passion about our business. We're super passionate about our business, and the people that we work with, whilst they're not sitting in our office or employed by Marston's, we really want them to have that shared passion about our business and be committed to, us being successful, as a company. So that's really what I look for.
Interesting. And how do you drive the collaboration both internally and externally with professional advisors? And how do you get that mix?
I think the best advisors that we've got are advisors, as I just alluded to, people who've got passion for our business. So that collaboration is almost from day one. We've got great advisors who will come in and speak to our operations team. So to bridge that gap between, the external advisor who, if we're the people that say no, goodness knows what they think about external advisors. So, to really make any external advisors human, to let them know that, they are also enablers. They are here to support us. We've got great advisors who'll provide kind of training to our ops guys, training to our in-house pub teams, training to various other teams within our business, for example, our commercial marketing department. I think that works really well. Somebody, an external advisor who's willing to step in inside the business and get under the skin,
Mm.
and actively seek out ways to support.
Right. And what we've talked about the growth aspirations, we've talked about the professional advisors and how they've helped collaborate and shape and provide advice, whatever that may be.
Mm.
But again, looking over the horizon, what challenges do you see coming down the line for the business, and how are you going to approach them?
I think, there's a couple of kind of key challenges that come to mind. I think one is probably more guest focused. One is more regulatory focused. So guest side, there is that complete move away from late night venues. People are not out now until the. Some people might be, but I'm not out until the.
I'm not either, Vicky. No, I'm not now.
And with the work from home culture, you're not having those work drinks, Friday nights in the centre of, Birmingham or wherever. As far as I can see, and what the data tells us, are nowhere near what they were pre-COVID. And people really have that sense of wanting to go out and bond and socialise, as opposed to being in a nightclub or a very, very noisy bar. And that really is a stem from COVID, that want to kind of go out early evening, have a meal, or just go and have a couple of pints and then go home. And the fact is, we're perfectly positioned. Our estate is perfectly positioned to be able to do that, which is great news. And then from a regulatory point of view, the big piece of legislation coming down the track is ECTA, so the Economic Crime and Fraud Prevention legislation, which will have a huge impact on our business. So there's a lot of work internally at the moment going on around how we will manage that within our business, with 1,300 employees and 1,100 suppliers. There's a lot of people and a lot of people that may be caught by the regulation. So I think there's challenges both sides of the coin.
You've made me feel at ease with that answer, Vicky, because I thought I was just getting old and grumpy, not wanting to go out in loud places. But right, I'm in with the crowd, so that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
We're at the end now, but I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
So, are you performance KPIs that we've discussed about, or people driven?
People.
What is it that sets your company apart from competitors?
I'd say people focus again there, actually, that, whether that be pub support centre people focused or pubs in the heart of the community, it's a people focused business.
Listen to your head or heart?
It's Valentine's Day, heart.
Micromanage or trust your people?
Trust my people.
Any regrets? And that's a really wide question.
Oh, wow. Regret, I suppose, it links back to what I said earlier. I regret staying in the wrong role for longer than I should have done. But it led me to where I am now. So you almost can't regret it. If I'd have gone earlier, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had now. So in the main, no, I don't think you can. For my own mental health, probably staying in a job that wasn't right for me for so long. Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, you're only just over 21, but if you could go back and speak to your 21-year-old self and give you a key snippet of advice, what would it be and why?
So if I go back 20 years, James, but thank you for saying that. It's a piece of advice that I heard really recently, but I wish I'd have known it years ago. And it's "This too shall pass."
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity, Tom Hanks does the most amazing, it's very short speech you'll find it on YouTube or TikTok, and it's just beautiful. This too shall pass when you're really in the mud and it never feels like it's going to get better. This too shall pass. And when you know everything and you think you're riding high, this too shall pass. And it just really resonates with me, and I think about it all the time. If I'm having a bad day, I think, do you know what? This too shall pass.
I love that. And I think that brings us right back to some of the themes that we've seen evolve and come out of this conversation, that we are normal people in high-pressured roles, spinning a lot of plates, trying our best. But actually, this too shall pass. I hadn't heard that phrase probably until around 12 months ago, but it resonates with me too, because we all think we've got our head into something, we're struggling, or there's a lot of pressure, or we can't really see the direction of travel. But the world keeps spinning, and we will do what we need to do, and we still give the advice, and the business will still do well. But tomorrow is another day. And I think sometimes I, for one, lose sight of it, because when I'm in the moment, it's all consuming.
Yeah.
But when it ends, you come out of it and think, what was that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also convinced that we should just be having a bit of fun with it. Yes, you're absolutely right. We're in senior positions. We have a lot of pressure. There's a lot to get through. There's a lot of people to be responsible for. There's a lot of budget to be responsible for, etc., etc. But you know what? I love my job. I really love my job, and I know you love your job as well, James. And I just think we need to remember that sometimes. It's good fun at times as well.
Yeah.
We get to meet great people. I get to work for a pub company, for goodness sake. It's awesome. So yeah, despite everything that can be pressured, this too shall pass, and we should just remember to have a little bit of fun with it sometimes.
I haven't got TikTok, so I'm now going to go on YouTube and search what you've just said.
Yeah, you've got to.
Vicky, thank you for the best part of an hour.
You are welcome.
Really enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you, more importantly, for being our first ever guest on our first ever episode of Higgs in Conversation with. So it's been a pleasure.
I'm delighted. I am delighted. And no hiccups. We went perfectly smoothly. I'm delighted. Thank you so much for the invite. I wish you all the very best with the podcast. I think it's going to be a smash hit.